Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Inclusive Storytelling Podcast. I'm your host, Ashwini Prasad. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. And we are speaking with Lisa Caprelli, who's an author, a speaker, and does virtual storytime and song presentations. She does them on site as well whenever possible and whenever it is safe. Her book and her series, Unicorn Jazz, is about being self-assured for children and about how to be inclusive through the children's book lens. Take a listen. Thanks so much for being here. You're going to really enjoy Lisa. And I appreciate you. And if you are liking this episode and other episodes, please leave a review, download, and share these episodes. In addition, as you know, I'm an anti-racism and anti-oppression educator and consultant, and if I can support you or your organization to create safe spaces in your social justice work, let's connect and see if we can create some safe spaces together. You can find me at theinclusivescreenwriter.com or on Instagram at theinclusivescreenwriter. Let's take a listen to Lisa Caprelli as she talks to us more about Unicorn Jazz. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Inclusive Storytelling Podcast. Today, I'm so excited to talk to Lisa Caprelli. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And typically at the beginning of a show, I like to share my puppet friends, and it makes adults smile, not just kids. And I just did an author visit. So I'm so blessed to work with children today. I didn't know that was going to be my life's work and mission. And I'm grateful to be on a show like yours. And thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, thank you. And so for those of you that are on audio only, it was great. Lisa just picked up 2 puppets. And so this is my first guest that really we're going to talk about writing and children's books. And I think this is such an important part of inclusive storytelling is that children and children's books and writing and authors, not only the stage or comedy or music, being able to be in a space where you have books and children's book especially. So Lisa, I appreciate the introduction. So let's jump in. I want to know a little bit more, and we kind of discussed this offline a little bit, but I love a little bit of a history of you and how you got to writing children's books.
Thank you. Well, I grew up in El Paso, Texas, a border town, if you know. It's right there next to Juarez, Mexico. I'm Hispanic. I come from a large family of 5. My grandmother had a 3rd grade education. She was forced to drop out of school because her mother passed away, and she helped raise her family. So my grandmother was a very pivotal part of my life, as many people can go back to their childhood and maybe it was a teacher, friend, relative. I love giving my grandmother credit because I was really shy growing up, like my character Unicorn Jazz. I grew up really shy, like my character Unicorn Jazz, and there's a reason why. When if you're a storyteller, writer, sometimes you put your personality or that of others into your characters. And my grandmother believed in me. And the first story is about a character believing in Unicorn Jazz and developing friendship. And so growing up in elementary school, our childhood, as we know, are pivotal years. I mean, and for people that don't have children, we were once them. I feel a responsibility to pay it forward and help the younger generation. That's the work I'm blessed to do. And it's a way to also stay young at heart. I love that I feel 7 a lot with wisdom, and I'm able to give back. I moved to California when I was almost 30 years old. I'm 50 now. And I came here with nothing but like $100 type story. And I, since then, have developed different businesses. I became an entrepreneur very quickly, learned the ins and outs of it. I have worked with hundreds of CEOs, helping them market their business to success. My prior career to children's work was in marketing and branding and PR. I wrote a book called Skip a Step, Imparting Wisdom for Young Entrepreneur Minds. It has a workbook also. We'd love for you to check it out. And it was, again, from me interviewing different leaders who all had different trials and tribulations. And almost every person I've ever worked with that was a business owner, leader, always had struggle and loss. There was never like everything was great, we rose to the top. So, I always like being curious and understanding the why, what the pitfalls were, what would be Skip's what would be steps they would skip if they could go back and tell their 7-year-old self, their 21-year-old self. So, and a lot of it was really to encourage meaning and happiness, because we all know we are searching for happiness and meaning. Nobody wants to be depressed. Nobody wants to be hurting. So for me, I've always been curious, and me having a writer's brain, I write things down. I mean, I spent a lifetime writing best of quotes from great leaders. And after you read them and memorize them, like I have, it becomes, it can become your voice, as it is now in speaking, because this was something that I never did. I used to get stage fright speaking.
Awesome. Thank you for so much for sharing all of that. So Lisa, that is absolutely fantastic. I love the introduction. And so what I love is you talking about your 7-year-old self. And I do the same thing. I've been asked, so what can I do? Because I run into a lot of people, and maybe this is your experience as well, at all levels of life and all times in life. They're just like, oh, I don't know, if I'm not doing this, I don't know what else I would do with my life. I don't know my passions. And I tell them, I go, if you can, if it's not too traumatic for you, think about what brought you joy as a child. Whether it is, for me, it was theater. And so when I think about that, and that's why I'm doing the podcast, I have a book out I'm a screenwriter, and I'm going back to that. And it was just so nice to be like, okay, yes. And prior to the pandemic, I was like, oh, maybe I should go back into improv and just briefly go in, do a 6-week class.
Yeah.
And I encourage people, if they can, yeah, definitely. I love what you're doing is, you're saying, go back to that 7-year-old self in terms of those steps you could skip, right?
Yeah.
To be in a space.
That's
but
the thing
now,
you do.
Yeah, the thing you do. And for our audio listeners, Lisa has picked up a book that says The Thing I Do. And I love that, is that if we can look at what you enjoyed as a child and be able to go back into that, I think is amazing. Well, so let's get into your book, In Unicorn Jazz. So tell me more about this main character.
Okay, in the first book, Unicorn Jazz moves to a new land in search of new friends. And she feels like she doesn't belong. This is the Spanish version. As you can see, some of them are in Spanish. The same thing. And so her mom sings to her. So she has a beautiful voice like her mom. And it was important for me to incorporate songs with all my books. We have 9 songs out now for Unicorn Jazz, because I sang to my son when I was little. I didn't have a nice voice. So Unicorn Jazz was going to have the magical, powerful voice. She has a mystic note for a tail, as you can see as I'm holding up. And that we got that trademarked. And, there was a lot of the business planning and going into the books, but for kids who read it and adults who love the message, there's different hidden messages. So she meets the horses say, well, you don't look like a real horse because, you only have one horn. And the gecko says, you can't hide like us. So again, many times in our life, everyone has feelings of times they didn't belong. Maybe they feel like they didn't matter. So for me, I want to go back and to tell children that each one of you matter, that we all have different personalities. We're unique, unicorn. That's why I picked a unicorn. And that we should celebrate our differences, not disgrace them or not make fun of them. I was made fun of, as many people have been, when they were young. And so for me, I'm encouraging people of all ages to embrace that they're different. We are all different. Of course we have different DNA. Of course, not everyone's gonna be a screenwriter like you or love it, or a singer or a dancer and love it. But I'm here with all the wisdom I've collected, that if you do what you love, and it doesn't even have to be career, it could be hobby or interest. If you do what you love and you don't take the opinions of naysayers or like, why are you doing that? But if it makes you happy, like maybe you like hiking, maybe you like adventure, maybe you like reading, and you like writing, and if people encourage our innate gifts, you're going to pour over that into other, and you're going to exude happiness because you're doing what you love. And so I like going back to children because I wish someone had told me that. Maybe I would have been an author sooner. I didn't know I was an artist. I'm also an artist. Didn't know that. No, I was told like, that's not something you can make money in, but why does everything we do have to be related to money?
I absolutely love that. And, if we can, it's so important to go in and take a look and really reclaiming those experiences, which I love that you're doing with, especially with Unicorn Jazz, is like, no, I don't belong. But I'm sure there's a whole journey that we can talk about that happens with Unicorn Jazz. And I also loved how you talked about that ability to do what you like. And I get these too. People will be like, well, again, right, as I was mentioning earlier, I don't know what I want, or no, I'm too afraid, or it's fear driven,
Right,
or it's like, no, I can't make money. And I encourage people, at least just do it a little bit, like have it as a hobby for now, but
right.
give yourself the chance to explore it. I think everybody should be given the chance to explore the things that they love or find out. And people will also bring up to me, oh, well, I don't have the money. Listen, you can go to YouTube videos.
Yeah,
There, and especially during the pandemic now, and even today, even though we're kind of getting a little past it, people are still offering free workshops. So just drop in one of those,
right,
and see if that spark happens or that interest. Or if you can afford it, take a local community college
right.
photography course for 4 weeks. Those are
There's
pretty
so many
inexpensive.
things. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what the thing I do is when I started speaking, going into classes and schools before the pandemic, I still do that virtually. I would see them get excited about the how to the again my business background that I didn't know they would be interested in a kid level, like careers, when they would say like, how did you learn how to do YouTube? How did you learn how to do video editing, green screen, and these kids know that, or they've seen it. You and I didn't grow up with YouTube. We're older than Google and YouTube. So
Yeah.
for me, looking at the world through their lenses, which I love to do, is and to open and expand their possibilities. And because what I found, and I found this working in business, that there was a book I wrote called Color Your Message, and it was teaching what I call business dinosaurs, why social media was important, because a lot of older people said that's going to go away. And I was like,
No, no.
technologies and anything invented after you were born. And I've always been an advocate of technology. Yes, we know that we have to turn it off. We do know that. And so I was always like at the forefront of technology and embracing it, because like, look, you and I get to be on a show like this. You get to have listeners listening to something like this. And I created a show that's now on Amazon TV called The Thing I Do, all since the pandemic. It is homegrown. I'm so proud of all the kid actors and singers and puppets. And a lot of it was just, I never did this before. And
Yeah.
to me, there's a saying, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And you listening, I'm proof, like many people are, that you could do anything you want when you set your mind to it. You take action steps and you get the right people on your team to help you.
That's so great. And I love this Unicorn Jazz. So I asked this because in screenwriting and in
Yeah.
writing, there's always a part of you, right? That's in your
Oh,
characters.
for sure.
So I'm curious. You mentioned it earlier, but I want to dig in a little deeper. How much of Unicorn Jazz is of you, and how much of it is created, and how much is of that character is influenced by your experiences or other people you know?
Yeah, I love that question. Unicorn Jazz, a lot is me. I of course I'll make up things, as I consider myself like a fairy tale writer. That's what you can do with its fiction and with art. So a lot of times, when I'm doing her puppet voice, it's just my personality, and I try to drum up myself because I'm not an actress, and we have professional actors doing some of the things on the show. And sometimes it's made up. Like I said, she's a great singer. I love to sing, but I'm not. So that was going to be easy to make up. Also, I have a niece named Jasmine. A lot of people don't know that. So I drew some of her personality, Jasmine, jazz, into it. And so for me, it was also to be, she's like a vulnerable, innocent character, as children should be, and curious, and she's going to have friends that help her in her whole life. And that is my story. I moved to California, had no family here. I had to, coming from a large family, that's really hard. I came from a loving family. And I used to cry because I missed them, but they weren't going to move here and I wasn't going to move back. This was, for me, the place I needed to be. I never saw an ocean until I was 17. I live 5 blocks from the ocean today by the grace of God. I'm so grateful and blessed to do. So I don't take things for granted. And I appreciate the hard work that it's taken me and the team, my illustrator, David Villalobos, who's my cousin, it was his dream to be a published illustrator. And whoa, we have done that. So again, that's his thing. And I love that for life, I get to bring out the best of people through storytelling, picture books, my own, personal story. I love that my books also promote social emotional learning. That's important in schools, especially since the pandemic. And social emotional learning is feelings and emotions, managing them. Like, when you're angry, what do you do? That's why my book, I See You Choosing Kindness, which I'm holding up. This was important for me because, as we know, kindness is important over other choices. And so in the book, Unicorn Jazz, there's a character named Billy Bob, the butterfly bully. And it's about choices. And that book meant a lot to me because I was bullied as a child. I was teased. And so for me, it's just teaching kids that they can be an advocate if they see something that they could stand up for, right? Because like I said, I grew up shy, like Unicorn Jazz. I used to hate that I was shy. I used to wish I could be like the popular kid. But now when I tell that to kids, when I'm standing before them, thousands of kids, zero nervous now, zero shy, I say, what would happen if I wasn't shy? If I was talking all the time, I wouldn't have been a writer. I wouldn't have observed the world. I did a lot of observing, and I love, there's people that can pick up on people's emotions, your facial gestures, all that's part of social and emotional learning, knowing, what's appropriate, knowing if did you hurt someone's feelings? How do you repair that? Teaching love, empathy, compassion, all those are things that you're going to need in communication in working with people. With the pandemic, because of that isolation, a lot of children, that's been delayed, and teachers are struggling, as they tell me, teachers from all over the country, because I've worked with them, and they tell me how challenging and the words, how sad it is that, it's for all of us, a lot of school parents or parents that had to homeschool that didn't have a degree in teaching, that was challenging. So I just feel like as a community, we can focus on what we can do. And many of us can rise to be leaders in happiness, rise to do what we can.
Without the title or being in business, leader, absolutely, it's to lead, and that can happen in so many different instances. And I love how, I call it magic, because when you talk about social and emotional learning, I'm actually going to be trained on social and emotional learning and its intersection with race relations, and be delivering that content to business
I have
folks.
some videos that I could share with you that teachers have given me content that I put on. Yeah, no, the schools love it. And I think, and again, who knew that just my own experiences would be that? Because I didn't know my books were going to be categorized as social emotional learning until a principal told me this years ago, before the pandemic, and people started finding that because it was like new buzzwords in education. And so I said, well, yeah, that's what I didn't have. I wish I had that.
Yes. And it's like you said, that empathy, that kindness. And also there's another word that I learned a long time ago, and it's not necessarily just kindness, but it's hospitality.
Yeah,
So
gracious.
being there for somebody and working with them and supporting them, not helping, supporting them.
Serving, yeah. I like supporting. Some people might say, I like acts of service, supporting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, supporting. It takes away that like saviorship mentality, or a mentality where somehow somebody needs you. No, everybody has their own agency, and you're there to provide what you can for them. And I love what you're doing, that's the message that you have, and you're bringing in your life experiences. You're able to focus in on your experiences as a child, right? And also for me, like when I do some of my screenwriting, I don't know if it's for you, but for me, when I think about ways that I can almost like provide therapy for myself. So I'm thinking about like when you were shy, you're like, well, no, let me create this character that's not. And now you're able to create this beautiful character, but also now you get to embrace that person that you were, but then also who you are as a woman today. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I never wanted to be in the limelight, never wanted to be. Now I am the spokesperson because I actually come with an army of people helping me. A lot of kids and kid actresses that are, help with our book drive donations that we give to children's charities. And Unicorn Jazz has been described as a movement. And of course I'm proud of that. I tell people I want them to remember Unicorn Jazz. I don't care if they remember my name or not. I care. Unicorn Jazz represents a mission, a body of work, and people and community coming together and growing together as we navigate through this thing called life. There's really no manual to parenting. There's no manual to relationships. We can learn and consume, which we should all learn and grow, until the day we die, I believe. And so we can all learn from each other. I mean, that's how I learned. I learned from great people like Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins. I mean, I have spent so much in self-development, because for me, the more that you can understand others, you're going to understand yourself, and you're going to be able to invite them to understand you. And isn't that like kind of what we want? Because when you look at everything in your way, your eyes and your perspective, it's through your glasses. They're not the same as someone else's experience. And the opposite of selfish is to help others, right? Take it off of you. And of course, that's going to bring you happiness and joy, and start doing it and you'll see it. And I still make mistakes. I'm going to miscommunicate with other people. I learn to take responsibility. I advocate for saying I'm wrong, or what can I do? I didn't mean to do that, and someone of course has to be willing to receive that. There's some people that, like, if you said something the wrong way or wrong tone, it could trigger some emotions in them that just go not right. And it's very interesting to me that people will be affected as we hear. Words can help, words can be loving, words can also hurt. And I wish for everyone to be happy. I want to be happy all the time. It doesn't mean I don't have to. It's like, no one ever says I want to be stuck in bed, depressed. I want to experience loss. I want to cry. No, that's not. No one wants that. However, as we know as adults, we can't avoid that. Suffering's a choice and happiness is a choice.
Lisa, as we're talking, what I really like what you're saying is that intention versus impact. And even though we didn't intend to offend or intend to do something, the impact and acknowledging that. And when I do my anti-oppression trainings, I say that, the intention versus impact, and also recognizing the impact can be there, and also be in a space where, how are you reacting? Because I've had conversations with people that have gone badly when I really feel like inequity has been put towards me. And when somebody reacts with defensiveness, or in a space where I feel they're not listening, the conversation's going to be halted for me. And my trigger is inequity, especially when it happens to me or somebody I love. And so there's these moments where I may not always be my best self, but the inequity is something that I want acknowledged. And if it does not happen, or that acknowledgement doesn't happen, then I'm not able to really move forward with somebody because they're not listening to me. Right. And so these power of these words, I think, are so important, including in children's books and in that space. So I'm interested, that social and emotional learning is so important. I'm interested in all of the work that you're doing today, and I wanted to know more about the work you're doing. How is this character and your book series received?
People, boys and girls, a lot of children of all ages and adults appreciate Unicorn Jazz and her character friend Treziki. And Treziki is born at the end of ICU choosing kindness. We knew that. I wanted to make the brand, diverse. And so Treziki is named after my son, Trey. And my son is a basketball sports kid. And he wanted nothing to do with the unicorn, in the sense that, he's a teen now. So, I invented Treziki. He plays basketball. And again, I was able to draw personality. And by the way, this is interesting. I have a son who's 30 and who is a nurse. And my older son plays the voice of Traziki. We have a game show that's on the series on Amazon TV. It's super fun. I encourage people to watch it. We donate the shows to children's hospitals and classrooms if they want them, because all these messages are incorporated in a fun, I kind of describe it as a Sesame Street way, but it's been homegrown. And so, you know, we have, all our characters have names. We have a goal to turn it into an animation series. It's a long process. But for me, as the feedback from children who love it coming to life in puppets in the show, in the kids show, with stories and songs, it creates limitless learning, because we have coloring pages, activities beyond the book for educators available for free. I look at it as, the more you immerse children into the stories and looking at it from the artist's point of view, from them exploring what they would do, besides if they were Traziki and they were doing show and tell. And, you know, looking at people through other glasses, there's like a glasses kit that do this. There's just so many things that we created. My mind's always spinning, you know, as a writer. Like, I'm the type that wakes up at 3 o'clock with the idea, and I work early like that, because that's some of the best time that I can put in with no distractions. And I just look at it like, why do I have to have weird, you know, set hours? I get my sleep.
I used to be such a night owl. So I used to go to bed at 2, 3, and it would just be normal. So I get you. And I love what you're saying about, yeah, that some of my inspiration comes from a dream, or sometimes as I'm winding down at the night in the shower, and I'm like, oh, I should do this with this character. And there's no set hours for it. It just kind of comes. I met up with a friend a couple years ago, and he's a programmer. But what I loved is that he was carrying around his backpack. And he said the reason why he was carrying around his backpack is because inspiration could come to him at any time. And so he wanted to make sure, I loved it. And so he wanted to make sure he captured it. So he was like, hey, I'm really sorry, I'm bringing my backpack with me. And I was like, no problem. But I love what he did. You know, he knew that inspiration could come at any time, and he was ready to jot it down and be able to make a note or change something based off of what was happening. So it was so great. And I love what you're saying about this. And I love the project. And so I want us to know a little bit more about where we can find Unicorn Jazz. Tell us more about, you've kind of mentioned and alluded to it, but tell us absolutely where to find Unicorn Jazz and the many venues, and how we can find you and be connected with you.
Yes, I'd love for you to go to unicornjazz.com if you're listening. If you're an educator, teacher, parent, if you can go on the education tab or author visits tab. I do virtual visits all over the world. We're doing a read across the world. Been doing it since the pandemic. As things get lifted, I can't wait to go back into schools and travel the world, teaching and sharing entertainment and messages with stories, songs, and of course with the social emotional learning component. I'm Lisa Caprelli. I'm easy to reach on all the social media. And I welcome hearing from, you know, I even have kids have I'm holding up a pen pal activity if they want to write, you know, write to me. Oops, here we go, pen pal. I always liked being a pen pal when I was young, and so for me, I do the best I can, and the growing team. You know, if I got hundreds of these in a day, which I would love, I probably would have a fan club.
With your pen pal notes, yes. That's absolutely wonderful, Lisa. And so, so folks can also go to Amazon, right, to find the Unicorn Jazz series?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. You could ask for it at your local bookstore. We are, you know, we are growing. We have 7 books in the series, including the coloring book pages, a 100-page educator guide. Just, we are constantly coming out with something new. We're coming out with a book called Help and Give Back. Beautiful artwork by my illustrator on ways people can help and give back, recycling, you know, Habitat for Humanity type projects, book donations, singing for a cause, all those represented by Unicorn Jazz characters. That's probably going to be one of my favorite books forever, because I do talk about the importance of helping and giving back. And that's one thing that I did as a child, volunteering. And since the pandemic, a lot of my time has just been donated, given away, or working on projects for the greater good of kids. And I don't, you know, to me, as I've been told, don't go count the cost, you know, God will, reward you. God will give you all the needs that you have. And that has been so. And I'm just grateful for the rise and growth and the community and people that know the backstory. So thank you for an incredible podcast like you, because when people get to know the backstories, we tend to support people with the story and this that's heart and meaning in something. We know that of any business, product, service, or brand and stories. And I'm so grateful that who knew that for a girl that felt like she didn't belong as a child or didn't matter or was to this or to that, that now there's meaning in my life and every single day, and to be in front of children is the best day of my life, and that gets to happen a lot, and I'm very grateful.
Oh, that's so wonderful. So Lisa, I ask this of all my guests, if we could be more inclusive in our lives, what advice would you give to our listeners?
It would be to help others, help and serve others, tell people what, when I'm a person that will ask for helping me. And I say, how can I help and serve you? What can I do for you? And people like that. It's easy to be, self-centered. We are selfish in nature, all of us. We want, but to talk and take in different points of views, to learn and be curious about people, to celebrate their wins, so they celebrate yours with you, and to help make the world a better place in whatever way you can. We all matter. How can you include someone's life in your life, whether it's one, whether it's 1,000 or 1,000,000?
Wonderful community. That is absolutely wonderful. Lisa, I love what you are doing. Everybody, if you're on audio right now, I highly recommend going to YouTube and looking at this video instead of just audio. Because one, Lisa is beautiful and wonderful, and also she was showing her books throughout this conversation. And so you could really benefit being able to see Unicorn Jazz. Check Unicorn Jazz out. Like Lisa was saying, you can grab the books and also go to unicornjazz.com. Lisa, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor to support your great work in the world as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.